What is up, film fans? Welcome back to Friday Night Filmdom, your one-stop shop for pop culture and movie news, views, and rants. I'm your host, Rob Metcalf, and this is our spoiler discussion for Episode 2 of the Disney Plus series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Now, quick disclaimer before we get started, if you haven't had the chance to watch Episode 2 yet, I recommend you just kind of tap that pause button, come back and watch later, because we're going to go into all the juicy spoilers in this discussion today, and we don't want to ruin it for you before you have a chance to see it. Now, joining me today is your ultimate Captain America fangirl and your Duchess of America's ass, Jenna Johnson. How you doing today, Jenna?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. You know, from now on, you're going to be known as the Duchess of America's ass from now till the end of time, right?
I will have business cards drawn up, so yes.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so first things first, let's just get your kind of general view of what you thought about the episode without going like too deep into everything, kind of your spoiler-free, just kind of thoughts on it.
This was an episode that it needs unpacking. It really does. That's without, going in depth of anything. There's a lot of things that happen. There are a lot of feelings that I have regarding this particular episode. Some are good, some are bad, and some are just super, super emotional. And, I can't... I'm afraid if I try to say anything else that it would spoil something. So.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I mean, I did really enjoy it, but everything just seemed to start right up. Like there was no, like, waiting for something to happen. It's just like, oh, we're in it now. Like, it's like the first episode just kind of set everything up, and then this one, you just kind of got there and got to it and got to the story. You kind of get more of a sense of kind of where everything's going now. But I'm definitely along for the ride even more than I was before. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's so obvious that they're not letting us down with this. And we still got around, if you don't count credits, somewhere around a 40-minute runtime. So I feel like that was a good... not as short as the WandaVision episode, right. So I'm still loving that, but I'm like, God, now there's only 4 more hours left, or 4 more episodes left.
They're spoiling me. I know I hate the serial, having to wait a week between episodes, but they're spoiling me with just how much content I'm getting right now. And I hope they know that I expect like some kind of Russo cut of Endgame soon, where it's like 8 hours of footage.
Right.
So they best be getting that out pretty soon.
I will say, at first I was like, I don't want the week-to-week kind of release schedule, but now that I've started to see it between WandaVision and this and a couple of the other streaming shows that have done it, I think it's the way to go, because I think it kind of builds hype to everything and keeps everybody more invested, because I feel like if they threw it all out there at once, I mean, we'd all binge it in one night. We'd just stay up and binge it in one night. We'd talk about it for 4 or 5 days, and then it'd be on to the next thing.
Exactly.
Like this way, we at least get, almost 2 whole months worth with 6 weeks, basically. So I think it just helps build the hype. I think it'll build the viewership. Because I know the numbers were good for episode 1, but I think as we go deeper and deeper, they're going to get even better.
Oh, yeah. The numbers were like, it was Disney Plus's #1 all-time episode to be streamed. Like, it'd be like every episode of WandaVision. And I was like, dang, I really like that. So I'm really hoping that they keep up the momentum that we've started out with. And like you were absolutely correct. Like once we enter this episode, it's nonstop. We don't stop much at all. And I think that's because we got kind of the precursor to everything last week. And so like ultimately, if we did want to sit down and binge it once the 6 weeks are up, it's just going to read as like one really long movie.
That's exactly what I'm doing when it's all out, right? Like, we know it's going to happen. Yeah. Okay, but speaking of just getting into it, we'll just kind of go there. I'll go down my notes. You kind of just add in with all of yours. But I know the kind of opening scene was, we finally find out fake Captain America's real name is John Walker. He's in that locker room kind of getting ready to make an appearance as Captain America. There's a part in that section that I was like, I don't hate this guy.
I know. Actually, that was one of my notes, and I said, "How dare they try to make me like John Walker? Like, how dare you?" So that's something that I'm gonna look out for, because with Marvel, they are notorious for giving us characters that we like and that we have an absolute turnaround with them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of here for that. I really hope it happens. Especially the way like his character does in the comics. So,
but I mean, throughout just the course of this episode, love you, hate you, love you, hate you, love you, hate you.
Yeah.
So, but I think they're setting him up to be a really unbelievable character because of all that. So we'll kind of have to wait and see.
Right.
So after you kind of see him kind of struggling with the nerves of going out and everything, you start hearing like the marching band music, and then they cut to the scene we'd all seen in the trailers that I didn't know how was going to play in the show.
Yeah.
Of them introducing the new Cap for, what was it, Good Morning America?
Good Morning America, yeah.
And he's just like, Good Morning America. And I'm like, that is the cheesiest shit he could have said, but it worked so well.
It really did. And that's why I'm so torn about this. I'm like, that was actually clever as crap, but I don't want to like you. So, speaking of that scene right there, I am a huge fan of the Captain America, the first Avenger soundtrack. Like, I have it on vinyl record.
Right.
And they ruined Star Spangled Man with a Plan for me. Like, absolutely not. I was in marching band, okay? I understand that certain songs you have to like change the cadence and everything to make it a good marching song. They have ruined the Alan Menken song for me. And I'm like, no. So after our chat, I am going to go watch that on repeat. So we're going to go watch Captain America: The First Avenger for a few times.
Now, in that scene, they show the crowd and everybody's going all crazy and screaming for the new Captain America. I mean, if it was real life, we probably all would be excited to see who this is, because you would know what kind of person he was.
Right.
You just know the way that the press and the media is like throwing him at you. But I started noticing all the people in the crowd that had these amazing Captain America hoodies on. Like, did you catch those?
I did.
If they do not sell those hoodies,
they are stupid. I'm sorry. It is. And they were gorgeous.
Yeah, like, I'm buying one.
Absolutely. It's like instant buy.
Yeah. And then, like, once he gets kind of started with the interview, he starts talking about how he's been on this promotional tour as, the new Captain America. My only question was, and they didn't really explain it too well, at least I didn't catch it if they did, is how much time do we think passed between episodes? Because if he's been on a promotional tour, I would think it'd probably be at least a couple of weeks, maybe. All
right, now here's the thing. I have an issue with this. Because from what I expected, and the time lapse rather, is it's not very long, because Bucky was able to get from Brooklyn to, I guess, New Orleans, where Sam lives, or wherever he was like flying from.
Right.
So he was able to do that. So I mean, like, maybe a car ride or a plane ride, something like that. But the government has had to have been training this guy since the blip. I mean, without a doubt.
Well, see, like, you see the montage of him throwing the shield. Yeah. I'm like, because that was my next thought. I was like, wait, if it was like right after Sam gave the shield to the Smithsonian, so is there like multiple Captain America shields roaming around?
I don't know. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. But I mean, I'm just sitting here. I'm like, he's been at this longer. He's been training for this longer than, even 6 months between the blip being reversed and the when the show takes place. Had to have been.
And I mean, like, during the interview, they're giving some of his credentials off. How he's won like 3 medals of honor. He's the most decorated well, maybe not the most, but one of the most decorated kind of soldiers they have. And once again, that kind of go, you're like, man, damn it, I want to hate you, but you're making it where I can't. Like, it's starting to annoy me. And I mean, he's all like, I don't know. I want to hate him so bad. And in that scene, I can't.
Yeah. I still can, though, because, well, he's not Steve or Sam, but I guess I'll have to deal if he's got to stick around for a while. So.
Well, see, but you start getting all those, like, feel-good feelings toward the guy, but then it cuts to the shots of, like, Bucky and Sam, like, kind of watching all this, and then it, like, brings you back to Earth and reminds you, like you just said, oh, this isn't Steve. This guy's never going to be Steve. And you just realize it's all wrong, even
Absolutely.
though...
Right.
And, like, the guy knows that he's not Steve, because he's even complimenting what all Steve did. But,
yeah. And like, there was one thing that I think you briefly touched on it, but or maybe that's in my imagination. I don't know. With him, like, he's wanting to jump into this fight, which is a very Steve quality. I mean, you got to admit, Steve would be the first person to jump into the fray. But he's super upset, and, which is obvious. And, it was the same parallel with Steve in the first Avenger, where the government had him as this, as he called it, this dancing monkey.
right.
And so he's not liking that aspect of it. And I just kind of worry that is going to cause him to do something rash, which would also be a very Steve characteristic. But, I mean, I just kind of worry that, him doing this promotional tour and the tours that he's probably going to be inevitably doing in between missions, it's going to go to him, and he's not going to like that. And he's not going to like that job of that part of being Captain America. And I think he may, kind of do something about that.
Right. Now, as they're kind of transitioning to the other scene, they start really focusing on all these posters. And I really like the Cap is back posters. Even though, like, I'm like, damn it, it's not Steve, but still. Because now I'm like, if they do get Chris Evans to come back and do Captain America, I'm like, if they don't make a Cap is back poster for that to kind of parallel this, I'm gonna be a little upset.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be, heartbreaking anyway. But one thing I really hated is that, how Sam works with the Air Force a lot, and that we saw him walking, through the hangar to this plane, and there were, like, the Cap is back posters everywhere. To me, that is a little, hurtful. And I'm like, if I work with the person who is one of the closest to this person, I would not be hanging up these new posters.
Right.
To me, it was kind of disrespectful to Sam.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it that way, but you make a really valid point. So you're talking about, Sam walking through the hangar, like going to the plane, and that's where this thing just picks right up, because all of a sudden, here comes Bucky. I mean, that was the one thing we said about the last episode, is we didn't get to see them together. Yes. They wasted no time
at all. No.
And I did not see that coming.
I absolutely loved, though, when, Bucky was sitting there in his living room, and it's like, this is the new Captain America, and, like, the look on his face, I'm like, oh, snap, it's about to hit the fan. And I'm like, nope. You don't piss off an ex-assassin. I'm sorry, you don't.
You really don't. You really don't. So him and Sam start having the conversation, and Bucky's like, this is not what Steve would have wanted. And honestly, I think Bucky's right, because Steve didn't even want to be that propaganda tool when they were making him do it. So if that's all they're making of what he was, it's kind of tarnishing Steve's legacy a little bit.
It really is. And you're absolutely correct. Steve didn't want that to be the thing. That's why he gave the shield to Sam, because he knew Sam would not only treat the legacy with the respect that it deserves, but, Sam wouldn't put up with the utter batshit crazy of, the whole propaganda machine.
Yep.
We're not in World War II. We're not sailing bonds anymore. So what is this? Why is this person focusing on, touring and not, trying to take down these flag smashers?
Right. Because, speaking of the flag smash, I mean, that's where Sam was headed. So, I mean, you kind of, they're continuing to have the conversation. And they bring this up a few times through the episode about the big three. That was androids, aliens, and wizards. And my first thought, I was like, is wizards, are they throwing the events of WandaVision into this? Are they considering her, quote-unquote, witch/wizard? Or are they just referring more to Doctor Strange? Or...
I mean, it could be. I mean, in, the big three, they could be just kind of lumping all the magical beings into one category, which, Wanda does have the title of Scarlet Witch, but ultimately she is a sorcerer, just like Strange is.
Mm-hmm.
Just like all the ones who protect the sanctum are. So that's a very apt category to put her in.
But I just thought that was real interesting considering the events of WandaVision. It makes me wonder how much Sam and Bucky may know about that or do not know. Because they haven't really said how much they know about what all may have happened in Westview. Because that may come. Oh, Lord. And then right after the big three comment, maybe my most favorite joke when Bucky makes the Gandalf joke. I about died.
I fell in love with that when they previewed it weeks ago. Or it may not be weeks ago. I mean, just a couple weeks ago when they did that. And it confirmed a lot of things for me. Because I have said since Captain America the First Avenger came out that Bucky is just a big old nerd. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about it. Okay, granted, when we first see him, he is saving Steve from getting his butt pummeled. But... he takes his date and his hetero life mate to a science convention. Okay? So I'm sitting here, I'm like, who would do that other than a nerd like us?
Right.
And just to have him say, I read The Hobbit in 1937 when it came out, I'm like, oh yeah, he's a nerd, and I adore that. That is just that is my favorite. He's it for me now. I'm like, yep. He's a nerd. Yep. He's done. We got it.
Now, right as, Sam's getting ready to leave, I'm thinking he's not going to let Bucky go with him, but Bucky wasn't going to take no for an answer, so he just gets on the plane and goes to Munich with Sam to go on this mission to stop the flag smashers.
How could you stop a super soldier from going anyway? I mean, he's got the strength and the speed, so it's like, how are you going to stop him from going?
Right, but still, I didn't think they would, just kind of start a mission together right then. Like I said, that's where this episode just picked up so fast.
Yeah.
So they're riding on the plane, and they're basically just awkward staring at each other, like the chemistry between just the two actors in those scenes.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Sebastian and Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie, they have got this excellent chemistry on screen and off screen. If you've seen any of their interviews, they are hilarious together, and they're bringing that to their roles, which I mean is very appropriate. And to see their frenemyship, it's a breath of fresh air because we see a brief tussle in the Avengers before everybody kind of comes together and they avenge Phil Coulson's death. In this one, no. You still have Bucky and Sam going head to head since Civil War. I mean, yeah. Sam was like, all right, you know what? He's Steve's friend. He can be, an acquaintance, not a friend. And they play that off so excellent in this movie. But yeah, the little... I guess tete-a-tete there in the plane as they're flying over. I'm just like, this is great. I had a big smile on my face the entire time.
Yeah, it changes the whole dynamic when they're together. I understand now why the show is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They just didn't do a Falcon series or a Winter Soldier series. Right. Honestly, ever since they were both in the car together in Civil War, like having their little back and forth when Steve's kissing Sharon. Like, my guess is that's probably what started this show, was when somebody was filming that scene. Probably Kevin Feige walked on set, was like, we got to do something with this.
Well, and for years, the fandom has been like, and I think it really started when Bucky, when they were cramped in this little VW bug, and he says, "Can you move your seat up?" And Sam just says, "No."
Yep.
And that one, the fandom kind of ran off with that, and we've asked for, since Civil War, can we please have some kind of, buddy cop show with them? And like, I've even seen people on the internet call them, like, this generation's like Turner and Hooch, and Starsky and Hutch. And we're like, especially with the Turner and Hooch, they addressed in an interview, and they said, well, which one of you is, the dog? And they're like, it varies day by day. So
it depends on which way you look at it. If you look at it in the course of the show, you could be like, well, Bucky's the dog because he's the white wolf. So you could.
Oh. When he said that in the show, of course, talking about the time on Wakanda, and Sam even says, look at you, the White Panther, and he's like, no, White Wolf. Bucky didn't know that Sam was joking, and Sam was like, wait, what? And I'm like, yep. that is going to be my clue that, I think by the end of this series, neither one of them are going to go by the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think we're going to see Captain America and the White Wolf.
Right. And after seeing it kind of play out that way and him name dropping that, they're definitely setting it up to use it again. Because that kind of like harkens back to when they're asking in WandaVision if Wanda has an alias. Like, you knew eventually they were going to say, the Scarlet Witch. And I feel like this is setting up the same kind of thing, just in a little different way.
I'm excited. And I did a little research through comic-wise. I think we'll end up with a new Falcon. And I think it is going to kind of play along with the comics there. So we're still going to have a Falcon. It's just not Sam Wilson as the Falcon.
You think it's going to be Torres?
I definitely think it's going to be Torres.
Right.
Definitely I think it's Torres.
Totally agree with that. Okay, so Sam goes to, do his thing and jump out the window, and Bucky's like, where's the parachute? And they're like, oh, no, we're too close to the ground. So Bucky just jumps himself. Yeah, like, you done knew what was getting ready to happen when he did it, but...
I mean, I knew, that is something that is very, kind of a... I was going to say complete statement. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's a theme. That's the word. It's a theme with the super soldiers. They're just going to jump out of a plane.
Mm-hmm.
Can't count how many times Steve did it. And look at Bucky just jumping out like that. And I just looked at the TV, closed my eyes, and I said, you dumbass, you don't have a shield to fall on. And then he just went flat. And I said, I told you so.
Mm-hmm. Now, like, once he's on the ground, you see Red Wing kind of come over and get it. What do you think his apprehension is toward Red Wing? Why doesn't he like Red Wing or trust Red Wing?
I think it may be kind of a distrust with technology in general. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of stems from when he was a Hydra assassin. And mostly because Hydra was using like a bunch of newer, bigger technology to brainwash him and to create this perfect super soldier. And that he may be wary of certain technologies now because it could have the same capabilities. And it could end up leading the enemy or someone you don't want to have near you, lead them to you. Case in point, when we found out that Red Wing had been tracked.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, so, finally, like, him and Sam get together, and they go to this place, and we get to see, the Flag Smashers loading up all this stuff to transport it. When I first seen it, I assumed it was probably weapons or something, just by first glance. Right. But, I mean, we learned later that it was vaccines. But I'm like, yep, we're getting ready to get an action scene. You could already tell. You knew it was coming. But, Bucky's all gung-ho, wanting to just go in, assassin style and just wreck some fools. And Sam's, like, trying to calm him down. You're seeing, like, the Flag Smashers, like, picking up stuff. So you're like, Bucky, this is a terrible idea. Listen to Sam. Dear God, listen to Sam.
He hung out with Steve for way too long.
Yeah. Like, you could just tell from that personality trait why they were, like, besties. So,
oh, yeah.
So, but then, like, Sam's using Red Wing to kind of, like, scan, the truck and everything, and they see somebody in there, and they think it's a hostage, so they take off, and that's kind of where this, I guess we'll kind of call it the truck chase scene, I guess, is the best way to kind of
ultimately,
describe
that's all we can call it, until they give us, like, a better name for it.
They probably will.
Probably.
But honestly, a really great scene. They're all fighting on top of the trucks. It was beautifully shot. It really, once again, felt like a real cinematic experience and not something necessarily made for the small screen.
Yeah, the budget for this has to be outrageous. Well, I mean, of course, it's going to be. It's Marvel. Mm-hmm. But, for it to be a TV show,
right.
Arrow didn't have nothing like that.
See, this makes me wish that there would be some theaters close to us that would do something like they did for Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead, where they played, like, the episodes premieres, like, in the theater, because I would 100%
go. Oh, yeah,
go.
absolutely. And that may be something, there's kind of a local theater, to me, in Abingdon, Cinema, that they did that with Game of Thrones and, a bunch of other shows. And right now, I mean, they're closed. They're running on limited hours due to COVID restrictions. Right. But, I mean, that may be something that, if we were like, maybe approach them for it and be like, hey, would you show this?
Right.
Please?
Because I would be there in 2 seconds. Yeah. 2 seconds. Because to see that kind of action scene, I feel like it would scratch my Marvel movie itch that I've been missing so bad because of all the COVID.
I have missed it. I have missed it so bad. And, I did a rewatch recently. I spent the 3 weekends catching my mom up on the MCU. She had never gotten into it, and, she watched WandaVision and loved it. And then she started having questions about characters, and I said, I can't explain it to you. You'd have to watch the movies. And so we just started watching one day. And, that's definitely, that helped scratch my itch for that. But right now I'm just waiting for, what is it, July 9th?
Yeah,
for not
Black Widow.
Black Widow.
Yeah, so I can't remember the exact date. I just know they just bumped it again this week.
But at least they're not waiting for a theatrical release, and that they are doing it on Disney Plus. So.
Right. But anyway, back to the fight scene. So they're all bouncing back and forth off the trucks. They're fighting the Flag Smashers, and all of a sudden this helicopter comes rolling in. And who's in there but
Captain America?
Captain America, the Dollar General version of Captain America. Like, can we just take a second to talk about how terrible that Captain America costume is?
I like the overall look of the actual suit itself, but the helmet, it looks like some little kid put on his dad's helmet and was like playing around with it. But it's kind of ill-fitting. I like the design, but it's like he's play acting. It's not fully his, and that's something that we see as the role in general. He's not ready for Captain America, but I think that kind of maybe is a nod that he's not ready. This is not really his title. Here's an ill-fitting suit that he's never going to grow into.
I mean, props to the costume department for making it look like Captain America, but not. I feel like there are like instructions where like, make this look like a Captain America like costume you'd buy on Wish.com. Like,
it truly is a cross between like the Captain America suit and U.S. Agent suit. Mm-hmm. And it's like almost a direct cross, but no, like you're saying, like you'd get it off of Wish or something. So.
Mm-hmm. But it was also great too, like when Captain America comes in and he's trying to fight the Flag Smash, just to kind of watch him. He gets a couple of good like shots in there, but overall he really gets his ass kicked. Like
he does. I was like, yes. That was one of the, well, not the first time I've ever rooted for the bad guy. Let's be honest. But I was like, yeah, show him who you are. Really take care of this. And it's one thing that we actually see this. He's addressed that he's not a super soldier.
mm-hmm.
You can tell he's not a super soldier.
Yes and no, because I have the question of how did he not get hurt falling into that car the way he did if he doesn't have some sort, like maybe they gave him a different dosage or something, but I feel like he has something going on, because I feel like that would have incapacitated almost anyone else.
And ultimately, we've seen, especially in Civil War, that the serum can be replicated. Mm-hmm. And that's what Bucky took from Howard's car. He took 5 doses of the serum. And, so we know it can be replicated. I just want to know how the Flag Smashers got their doses.
Yeah. And see, and I'm really curious, like, did they mention what the vaccines were that they were hauling, or did it just say vaccines?
They just said vaccines. So, I mean, ultimately it could be anything. It could be, a code name for serum. But then again, it could just be literal vaccines if they're trying to create this utopia that they had before the blip.
Mm-hmm. Now, I did like that there was so many mentions of the blip in this episode, too. It's like they're trying to, like, push it in everybody's head that this changed everybody's lives.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that part was, like, kind of nice. So, like, basically in this one, the Flag Smashers really end up just winning, because they kind of just get off scot-free even after Captain America shows up. So then you get this great scene of, like, Falcon flying under the truck, rescuing Bucky. They're rolling around in the grass. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, it's like that scene from The Lion King when Simba and Nala are rolling around. Like, I was waiting for some Elton John to start playing.
I literally, when they both landed the way that they were, there was a little tiny piece in the back of my mind. I was like, now kiss. And I'm like, no, Jenna, no.
We'll save that part for the fan fiction you write after the show's over.
Oh, it's probably already out there.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So they've got this whole like scene after that where they're walking up the road, which I don't understand why they just took off walking and Sam didn't just fly him somewhere. But still, I mean, they're like just walking down the road. And then, of course, here comes Dollar General Captain America again, like just driving up like, hey, guys, get in the car. And they're like, no.
I have to say, I got very distracted whenever I would see, John Walker without his helmet, because, he's the perfect amalgamation of both of his parents. I mean, the actor. And so I'm sitting there and I will just look at him and be like, yeah, he really does look like Kurt Russell, doesn't he? And
he really
and
does.
I'm just like, he's like the perfect combo between Kurt and Goldie, and I'm like, how in the hell? I'm like, so that kind of like distracted me for a little bit. But yeah, I don't know why Sam didn't fly him somewhere, unless it was, who knows? Maybe they'll address that. But I thoroughly enjoyed them walking down the road, and then this Jeep coming up, and then them just still walking.
Now, when the Jeep pulled up, Michelle had like the best reaction to all that, because like John starts talking and she goes, it just feels icky. Like, but I'm like, this is the point right here. This scene is where you start kind of flipping on John. Like you were liking him before with all the promotional tour, but now that you're seeing him kind of in his element and being his real self, you realize, oh, you're not Steve. Like he really is kind of icky. That's
I have to say, I almost threw hands at one point when he was talking about, I've learned about, Steve's history and all this stuff. And when he said he's like a brother, and I was just like, oh, hell no. No. I was like, Bucky, get him. And then nothing happened. So that kind of made me mad. I was like, you could have at least thrown a punch. come on.
We'll get it eventually. I got a feeling that line will come back to him too.
And one thing I absolutely, when and there's a distinct parallel between another Disney movie at this, because when Bucky said, "I'm going to steal the shield," it has the same kind of energy as Nick Cage when he said, "I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence." I'm just waiting on it at this point. And, from the previews, we see that they end up throwing a shield around. But I'm just super excited, and I'm just like, I just need, yeah.
Now, one of the biggest things I feel like we got from that whole conversation while they're riding in the Jeep is when we get told that the Flag Smashers are indeed super soldiers, and there's 8 of them. Like, we kind of suspected it, but that was like just pure confirmation of kind of what we'd already suspected. So now, but like, it's like you said, it's like, now the big question is, where did they get the serum?
Exactly.
And I feel like that may end up being the big plot thread of the whole thing, to be perfectly honest with you. That may be what the whole series revolves around, is that one little kind of line right there.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially when we find out that there was not only Steve and Bucky super soldiers back in the 50s, but there was another one that Bucky, kind of went up against in Korea. And I was just, I was like shocked. I'm like, how did this happen? I'm like, of course we know that they were going to try to replicate. And that's, we see it in Agent Carter. If you're familiar, they had Project Rebirth, where they took Steve's blood and they tried to formulate the serum from that. If Shield was doing that, who's to say Hydra wasn't doing that? Or like another rival country, because we saw, right, especially in like Iron Man, we saw all of these countries trying to mimic the Iron Man suit. How many countries are trying out for a super soldier serum and actually succeeded somehow?
Right. And I got a feeling it may end up being more than even we think it is. Like, there may honestly end up being a whole army of them that we don't even know exists yet. Now, the other really cool thing that I think we learned from all that conversation too is they found out how John found Bucky and Sam too, is because they were tracking Sam through Red Wing.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to kind of what we were saying last week about Sam can't trust these people.
Right.
Like, the military is not on Sam's side.
Absolutely not.
And that just absolutely just confirmed that theory, I think, 100%. And honestly, that may be another reason for Sam to give up the Falcon moniker and become Captain America when he realizes, oh, they're just, tracking me and I'm basically their puppet.
Right. Exactly.
And I know, John's like, oh, asking Sam and Bucky too. He's like, well, we should team up on this. And they're both just like, oh, hell no. Like, we are not teaming up with you.
Yeah.
Because even, let's say John was the most wholesome, perfect person, to them, he's never going to be Steve, and I don't think they would ever team up with him regardless.
Exactly. And that involves something, because you had mentioned earlier that, John Walker, they were extolling his virtues in the military there at the beginning. Just remember, though, when Steve is going through the program to become a super soldier, Erskine picked him because, and I quote, you're not a perfect soldier, you're a good man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're seeing here. I think that Walker is the perfect soldier, but he doesn't have the goodness and the heart it takes to actually step up to this particular role.
Right. And that's where I think you were right before. I think Sam deep down does, and I think that's why Steve took such a liking to him to begin with. So let's see. So after that, there's a little scene with kind of the Flag Smashers again when they kind of get there, to make the delivery. We find out people are holding them, not holding them up, but giving them a place to stay, all that. And the one girl Flag Smasher, I can't remember her name right off, but she gets this really weird. Carly, was it Carly? But she gets this weird text. It's like, basically, I'll find you and I'll kill you. I do want to know what that's about. Like,
Yeah, and
it seems like there's.
Go ahead.
It seems like there's some inner conflict between the group, maybe, is what I'm thinking. Like, there may be different factions of this Flag Smasher movement that.
And it's very possible. It's very possible because, you have two opposing sides to everything. And, you may have the Flag Smashers who are wanting to do it this one particular way. And then you may have very well within the same group, having these doubts and, these worries about, why are we doing this? But you can't voice that because, as we've seen, they are pretty violent.
Yeah, because I mean, in all honesty, it goes back to just like when the Avengers were arguing during Civil War. I mean, they're both on the same side, but they had different ways they wanted to go about doing it. So you're very, very right that it could be just something like that. So after that, we go back to another scene of Steve and Bucky, Sam and Bucky. I got so used to saying Steve and Bucky all the time that now it's just weird.
It is. It makes me sad.
But basically, like, Bucky's just like, we should just take the shield and do it ourselves. Like we both were saying in the previews, we see him with the shield. I think eventually this exact thing will happen. They're going to end up stealing the shield and trying to do it themselves. They talk about the last time the shield got stolen and how much trouble Sharon got in, how she became an enemy of the state. So I'm like, but oddly enough, we still have yet to see her. Like, she gets mentioned, but we don't see her yet. Yeah. Now, I do know we did at least get a picture of her in the end credits, so it's very obvious.
It may be soon.
Hopefully soon, because I feel like she's like the one thread still kind of hanging. Yeah. But then after this, like, Bucky says there's someone you should meet. And I'm like, who the hell are they going to meet? So,
I was so confused.
Yeah. So they're like walking through this neighborhood, and there's kind of just like this little joke scene where these kids like stop them. They're like, "Oh my God, you're the Falcon, the Black Falcon! Like my dad calls you the Black Falcon." He's like, "'Cause I'm black." Like I don't know where that joke came from, but it was like I felt like it slowed the pace just enough and gave just as much comedic timing that it was kind of perfectly placed. Yeah,
because we were going from like heavy scene and then right to another heavy scene. Mm-hmm. And, that was the perfect little comedic element to kind of put us back in our mindset.
So then like they get to this house and I'm looking at it and I'm going, who in the hell is going to be in this house? I was like, if they open this door and it's old man Steve, I'm going to die. Like, that's what I was kind of hoping for.
I never thought about that. Man, now I have an additional hope that should have happened.
But I was like, could it be another Avenger? Like, I was really curious to see, like, who was going to open the door.
Right.
And then somebody answers the door, and we have no idea who it is. And then Bucky's like, well, is Isaiah here? And he's like, ain't nobody here by the name Isaiah. And I'm like, what the hell are we doing?
Sorry.
Oh, no.
I had been questioning that as well. I'm like, who is this guy? And when we find out in that scene, he was a super soldier that was, I guess, in power, between Steve and Steve. So I just Googled him, and it turns out, have you looked this up?
I have not.
The guy's name is Isaiah Bradley, and he actually became Captain America after Steve at one point in the comics.
What?
Yeah.
So so they did go see Captain America.
Oh, they
Holy
did go
shit.
see Captain America. But that was kind of the ultimate thing. I was like, well, we have two more super soldiers from, back in the day. How many more are just going to pop up?
Right. Now, I love when he's talking about when he was fighting with Bucky and he, like, ripped part of his arm off, basically. I was like, okay, this dude was a badass. Yeah. Like, and then, like, I'm not sure what exactly it was when he got upset that he threw against the wall, but it just kind of like dawned on you how strong this gentleman really was.
It was a little trinket box. It was like one of those 10 trinket boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And he just like throws it and impales the wall. I'm like, oh, snap.
Now, I feel like because we didn't get, other than just finding out that there's other super soldiers, even, that the U.S. had used, I feel like this character is going to play a bigger part coming down the road. I don't think his time's done. I think they build up too much in this scene to just that be the only time we see this Isaiah character.
It's very possible because we don't have closure with that character. And you can blatantly tell from the interaction that he has with both Bucky and Sam that there are some hard feelings there in a lot of ways.
Right.
And we kind of I know a lot of people who have been doing reviews have been talking and touching on the issue of race going on here, and you can definitely see that within this scene, and the one that happens right after it with
Right.
Sam. So
now, see, if he would have taken basically the mantle up after Steve was gone, staying on the subject of race, I feel like that'd be a trying time for a black, African American Captain America. Like,
right, and
like,
go for it.
Like, there may have been a lot of animosity just from his just inner circle. Like, it kind of surprises me that they would pick a black person in that time to kind of take up that mantle.
Yeah, that, you're absolutely right with that. But I mean, it's one thing that we've not seen in this universe, that there was another Captain America other than Steve Rogers and now John Walker. So, he may have been a super soldier. He just may not have had that name at that point.
Right.
But like I said, the movies aren't the comics. They are based on the comics. It's not, the story from. So I mean, that's one thing that we may not get that the actual naming of him as Captain America, but he was Captain America just without the glory part of it.
Right. So after they leave the house, I know you kind of touched on the next scene. Bucky and Sam are arguing in the street about what just happened and why, Bucky had never told Sam, and then the cops pull up. And of course, it hit a little close to home with everything that's happened.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in the last couple of years, just in the real world. Like, I felt like they very nicely showed the parallels of what it would be like. Basically, just shit racist cops just automatically thinking that this black man was doing something awful.
Oh, yeah.
Until they realize he's someone famous.
Exactly.
So
exactly. I like literally. I just shook my head in dismay for like a good few minutes. I said, "Are you seriously profiling right now?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was. It was profiling, and I'm like, don't. You're better than this. Of course,
but I feel like that's Marvel's way of sneaking in real world issues, so they can kind of say more where they stand on it, but not making it so in your face, like.
Yeah, so blatant.
Like they have an agenda. So that part was kind of nice. But then, like, once everything gets kind of worked out, we find out that Bucky's got a warrant out for his arrest because he missed the therapy session.
I laughed that entire scene. I kind of looked at dismay again. That's what I said. I was so back and forth with this episode because I am sitting there telling the cops, not that they can hear me, why are you putting handcuffs on a super soldier that within a snap of his fingers will break out? But
right.
that also shows Bucky's growth that we see. He doesn't have that, the Winter Soldier mind anymore. So he's not going to break his restraints. He's going to come willingly. And that's, you're seeing a drastic difference from, the Winter Soldier we see in the Winter Soldier and to the Winter Soldier we're seeing, a few years down the road.
Right. So then, like, we kind of transition to, we see Sam showing up at the police station, right as kind of the therapist shows up. He thinks the therapist got him out of jail. Come to find out, it was John that had got him out of jail. But when she tells Sam that he has to go to that therapy session with him, I was like, this is going to be gold. Like, I don't even care. I could have watched a whole episode of just the therapy session, and I wouldn't even cared.
Yeah. It's the couples therapy we didn't know we wanted between Sam Wilson and Becky Barnes. It was.
I mean, and the fact that she made it actual couples therapy, like while they were doing it, trying to get them to just like explain their feelings. Oh yeah, it was absolute gold. But then like they eventually do bring up some really big issues like between them when they're talking about this, because like Bucky finally says, why did you give it up? Like the way I took it is it basically wasn't his to give up, like that Steve gave it to him because he saw something. He's like, well, if Steve was wrong about you, then he was wrong about me. And like that broke my heart.
I cried. Okay, so I had to retouch makeup because it made me cry, and I'm just like, oh, Bucky, baby, no, don't you dare think that. No. So that really hurt because Steve did see a lot in Sam. He actually said at the end of Endgame when he was given, or was it before he gave the shield or before he left? I can't remember. I'll have to figure it. He said, "You're a good man, Sam." And that's when I knew that Steve was going to stay in the past but give Sam the shield, because Sam was not that perfect soldier. He was that good man, just like Erskine saw in Steve.
Right. So then, like, the therapy session's finally over, and they go outside to talk to John, who, kind of flips on the sirens. This is where he starts getting even more cocky, and you're kind of realizing how bad of a person he can be. I looked at Michelle. I was like, oh my God, he's being Homelander from The Boys right now. You're just starting to see the narcissistic nature toward him, I guess is the best way to put it. And once again, he's trying to get him to like team up, and Bucky and Sam are both just like, no. I think they both kind of know deep down that it's just a bad idea. But then you get John kind of looking at him and being like, well, if you're not going to join me, just stay out of my way. And, like that sent chills up my spine. Like I went from really liking him at the beginning of the episode, but right here toward the end of the episode, I'm like, now Bucky can kill him.
Beat him. Yeah. And that right there also leads me to believe that maybe something happened to the Sokovia Accords when the blip took place, because, he said, you work for the government, you have these rules and regulations you have to attend to, we're free agents. And I'm just like, but you're still, you've got certain technology, you've got enhancement, but that would fall under the Sokovia Accords, but you're not doing their rules and regulations either. So it kind of makes me wonder, did something happen to those during the blip? And, what does this mean for, the future of the superheroes?
Well, do you think something happened to it during the blip, or do you think they kind of rewrote them kind of after that fight with Thanos?
Yeah, kind of like rewrite maybe, or who knows, maybe just disband it. Because you've got like drastically the universe's population was cut in half. You're gonna have people who are going to need assistance. So maybe they just like, okay, well, you help these people out, and then how does that affect once it came back? I mean, once everybody's back.
Now, do you think that we'll ever actually get an answer to what happened to the Soviet Accords, or do you think that we'll just kind of move on?
I think it's going to be a loophole that we're just kind of worrying about. We think it's still there, but then again, it may not be. But unless they address it again, like head on, I don't think we're going to find out.
It'd be weird because, I mean, they could bring General Ross back at some point to kind of explain that, like maybe in a later movie or something, because like we might hear about it by the next time we get an Avengers team up. But that is something I would like to kind of see and know, kind of, you know, what that kind of entails and what happened to all those. I think that'd be something really interesting to see. So hopefully we will at some point.
Yeah.
So after that, we kind of go back to another scene with the Flag Smashers. You know, they're loading up this plane, trying to take off. And I'm not sure what group was coming to get them. I don't know if it was like local authorities, FBI, like some sort of SHIELD type organization, or what exactly was coming after them. But, you know, somebody was coming after them to get them that wasn't, you know, of course, Bucky or Sam. And the one super soldier's like, oh, I'll give you the time. So he puts the mask on and just starts fighting them. Well, at this point in my head, I start wondering, I'm like, what exactly do we think the symbolism is behind the mask? Is it just to hide identity, or you think there's some more meaning to it?
I haven't looked into it that deep yet. Mostly I just thought that it could be, just, hiding identity. But there's got to be something deeper to it. There has to be. There always is.
Right.
Whether we know it right now or not, there is always something deeper.
Because, like, to me, in my head, what I think of now when I see them all putting on the mask, especially since all the masks are kind of the same, it makes me think a lot of the movie V for Vendetta, when they're all wearing those masks, and this terrorist organization, like...
I don't have mine handy, or I'd put it on.
But for some reason, that's kind of the vibes it gave me.
Yeah.
So it may just be a symbol for them, kind of like it was in that. Is kind of what I'm thinking may be the deal. So now we're kind of getting toward the end of the episode. You know, the only real thing that happens now is Sam and Bucky are having the conversation, and they realize they need to go see Zemo.
You were right. You were right.
I do it.
That
like,
pisses me off. But you were right. I'm sitting there. I was like, no. And then Bucky said, Siberia, and I said, oh, holy shit, they're going to get Zemo. And I'm like, no. And then I looked back at a screenshot that I found on the internet. I still want to know, of course, the particular names that Bucky has to make his amends. Why is Helmet Zemo on there? I need to know this. Because as far as we know, Bucky had nothing to do with Zemo until Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
What? I'm like, he had nothing to do with Sokovia falling apart, lightning everywhere, and accidentally killing your family. So, why does Bucky have to try to make amends? They best tell me in this next episode. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, I'll admit I was only half right, though, because I thought Sharon would show up first, and then it would be her decision to go see Zemo, but it seems like that's maybe not going to be the case, unless maybe she's the one that takes him there eventually, but I really seriously doubt. I think how they're going to bring Sharon in at this point is I think she's going to be the one that's going to help them steal the shield back.
Very possible, especially if she's still working with the CIA, which it kind of makes me wonder because, she was CIA when she first stole it to give to Steve in Civil War, but then she became an enemy of the estate. That, to me, is like automatic termination from that position. So, how is she going to do this? But, I know that we end up seeing her, and it kind of looks like in the previews that the first time that we're seeing her is in the middle of a fight scene. So right. I kind of wonder if maybe she is Black Ops at this point and maybe trying to tail these Flag Smashers. And that's how they end up meeting back up.
Now, if we see her in a scene like when we first seen Steve in Infinity War, where there's just like a big fight going on and she just kind of shows up out of the shadows, and I realized that you were right and that she just shows up in the middle of a fight scene and it's that glorious. That's what I'm hoping and praying for now. Like, I hate my old theory.
Yeah, I mean that would be fun. And like I said, I did a lot of research this week on the comic characters who actually had the mantle of Captain America. And at one point, Sharon has it. And so that kind of makes me wonder, maybe she's trying to do this kind of covert Captain America. And where at this point, especially towards the end of this episode, John Walker's just in this for the glory.
Mhm.
And, you know, he is flaunting the title everywhere. He even looked at one point and said, I'm Captain America. And I said, oh boy, you best not be. No, no. So, you know, he's just in it for the fame and the glory. He's not in it to do the job.
Right, right. See, now that makes me wonder, because we all kind of know Sharon was a badass from just a little bit we've seen her fight before. What if she gets her hands on some, like, super soldier serum and actually gets some powers out?
I mean, she's kick-ass in the comics. She was kick-ass the first time we saw her in Winter Soldier. Then they made her the love interest in Civil War. And anytime you take this a strong character and make them the love interest, it diminishes them in the eyes of a lot of the viewers. But, you know, I would like to see her in the role that she was originally as, in this amazing spy that just so happens to be female, but can go in and get the job done.
Right. Yeah. So that'll be fun to kind of see how that all plays out. Now, my last real question for today is, with as quick as we got the meetup of Sam and Bucky in this episode, do you think the meetup for episode 3 between them and Zemo is going to be just as quick, or do you think they're going to drag it out a little bit and make us wonder?
I don't know. At the end of this episode, we see Zemo in his cell. Mm-hmm. And that kind of makes me wonder, since we saw him in this episode, if they're not going to prolong it a little bit more. Maybe have a few more skirmishes with whoever, you know, Dollar General Cap or the Flag Smashers. But you know, I don't know if you've got this level of apprehension that this anticipation that you want to build up to. And by giving us Sam and Bucky straight off in this episode, that was amazing. That kind of quelled our anticipated, reunion for this. I think they may want to draw it out a little bit.
Now, see, I'm in the opposite camp. I think the first scene that we're going to get is going to be them sitting there talking to Zemo. They're going to come up with their plan right then, right there. And I think the first action scene we're going to see is them breaking him out of jail. I think that's how the next episode's going to start.
Well, you were right about them having to work with Zemo. So I'm not going to say yes, but I'm not going to say no about that.
Fair enough. Well, okay, guys. So now you got kind of our thoughts and theories on the show. Want to thank everybody for watching, but we also want to know what you guys think, so make sure you comment below, give us kind of your thoughts, your theories. Maybe we'll bring it up next week on the show. But make sure, if you like the content, make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell so you get the notifications. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.